Namaskar, all of you. A very warm welcome on this very special and very important webinar of the day on the World Soil Day. We are commemorating that today. And we welcome Dr. Himanshu Pathak ji. And to please start the webinar for the day. And please, sir, over to you, Dr. Pathak. We would request you to please switch on your video and introduce the topic for our viewers and the panelists also for the viewers.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Also, good evening to our friends who are joining from other countries. Is the slide visible?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Am I audible clearly?
You're audible.
So, on my behalf, I also welcome each and every one of you on this very, very important day when all of us and also all the whole world is observing World Soil Day. Friends, in next few minutes, I would try to share with you some of the thoughts and objectives of observing World Soil Day. The basic objectives of observing this particular day is to celebrate the importance of soil as a critical component of the natural system. It also recognizes soil as a vital contributor to the human commonwealth. It acknowledges the crucial role of soil, which is plays for food, water, and energy security. It identifies soil as a mitigator of biodiversity loss and climate change. And World Soil Day urges global community, each and every one of us, to generate and communicate the knowledge of soil for the common good. So World Soil Day is a platform which has been created for all of us for raising global awareness on soil. Just to tell you very briefly about the history of this particular day, it all started in 2002, 18 years back, when International Union of Soil Science, IUS, has recommended for an international day to celebrate soil, all its role, importance, and everything. Then after 11 years, in June 2013, FAO, Food and Agriculture Organizations of the United Nations, supported the formal establishment of World Soil Day within the framework of the Global Soil Partnership. Then in the same year, in the month of December, in the 68th United Nations General Assembly designated 5th December, today, in 2014, as the first official World Soil Day. And why this December 5? This particular day corresponds with the official birthday of His Majesty the King Bhumibol Adulyadej of the King of Thailand, who officially sanctioned it. And since 2016, this particular day has been officially recognized in the memory of the beloved monarch who passed away in October 2016 after 7 decades as head of the state of Thailand. So that's how the whole World Soil Day has come. Now the question is, why to worry about soil? We all know soil, but probably we do not give due importance, due respect, due recognition to soil. Friends, all of us know agriculture, and agriculture is still the only industry which produces food through the process of photosynthesis. And that one comes from sun, air, water, and of course, soil. And that agriculture gives us food, feed, fiber, fertilizer, fuel, and almost every needs of the society. And that agriculture is based in stem, is rooted in soil. And that's what the importance. Not only in biomass production, it has got its very, very salient contributions for water, whether it is open water or groundwater quality, air, atmosphere, human health, biodiversity, culture. You can think of any dimension of our life, and you will find that there is the role of soil. Without soil, probably these are incomplete. Just if I want to summarize what is the role of soil in society, number one could be producing food for better health, because healthy soil only can produce healthy food. A poor soil, unproductive soil, nutrient deficient soil cannot produce healthy food. Economically, healthy soil requires less external input and of course increases profit. Environment-wise, healthy soil keeps environment healthy. And of course, politically, if your soil is healthy, you do not to depend on many other countries for import of food and many commodities. And in terms of poverty, as they say, if the soil of any country is poor, it becomes very difficult for the people of that country to be rich. So poor soil means poor people. And that's how it is connected. Nowadays, we all talk about sustainable development goals. But friends, you will be pleased to know that almost all these 70s SDGs are directly or indirectly related to soil health. So therefore, many times I say, whenever we talk of sustainable development goals, I think we should also make it soil development goals. Because without developing soil, without managing soil, without keeping the soil healthy, we cannot achieve sustainable development. Just before I proceed, let me tell you what is soil health, because we are observing soil health awareness today. When we talk of soil health, it is not only one parameter. We talk of physical, chemical, and biological, all the properties of soil, which will keep it healthy, which will retain more water and will make that water available, which will be having a better root growth, and all of this with good biodiversity and so on. So in totality, we call it soil health. But the question is, the soil health is deteriorating. All of us know that. Why is it so? Why soil health is deteriorating? There are several reasons, but just to name a few, probably inappropriate land use, deforestation, urbanization, water and wind erosion, faulty agri management, dumping of waste and pollutants, mining of nutrients from soil, depletion of soil carbon, and of course, climate change, which is affecting almost every sphere of life, is also affecting the health of soil. Just to give you a few numbers, around 24% of global soils are degraded. In India, around 121 million hectares, that is 36% of total geographical area of this country, are degraded by some reason or the others. Could be soil erosion, salinity, alkalinity, acidity, waterlogging, nutrient deficiency, other edaphic stresses, and so on. And if you want to put it in US dollar or in rupees, the amount is really very, very enormous, very, very enormous. So that is the price of degradation of soil. If you see in the history of development of civilization in last thousands of years, we have really depleted our soil. Around 120 billion tons of carbon, soil organic carbon, we have lost from soil to the atmosphere. And as you know, that unfortunately our soils of tropics, particularly soils of India, are quite low in terms of organic carbon. So we are anyway very, very poor, and our responsibility becomes more. And the projection is that as the time is going, climate change is aggravating, temperature is rising, and so on. So the organic carbon content of soil is further going to deteriorate, further going to decrease, and this is going to cause serious impacts on productivity, nutrition security, and many other parameters. Besides, our soils are also getting depleted with several nutrients. Earlier, we were thinking that probably soils are deficient only in nitrogen, but now you can see there are almost every nutrient deficiency is being observed in some parts of the country. So this is becoming another major challenge for Indian agriculture. We apply fertilizer, we apply manure, but the application is not balanced. As you can see, we apply somewhere very large quantities, somewhere very small quantities. As a result of imbalance, we create some more problems. And globally, probably all of you know about the planetary boundaries. They have identified 9 planetary boundaries, out of which 3 we have already crossed. 3 we have already crossed. What are those 3? Climate change, nitrogen cycle, biodiversity loss. And 2 more boundaries, phosphorus cycle and ocean acidification, we are about to cross. The total is going to be 5. And if you see all these 5, almost all are related directly or indirectly to soil, whether you talk of nitrogen cycle, biodiversity loss, phosphorus loss, and so on. So that means you can see that if you have to remain within the boundary, if you have to keep the planet sustainable for next million years to come, then we really need to care our soil. And there I come to soil biodiversity, because this is the theme of this year World Soil Day. As you know, the soil is a living resource. It is home to more than 25% of planet's biodiversity, more than 25%. And several advantages, benefits we harvest from the next speaker. Mark will be telling in detail. But you know,
sorry to interrupt you, but there was a minor, like I think, voice issue at your end.
Okay, is it audible now?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay, okay. Thank you. So the benefits, but of course, detail will be covered by Mark. Not only plant growth, not only human health, water purification, or climate change, or healthy soil. There are several other benefits which we harvest from soil biodiversity. As FAO says, that soil biodiversity is the hidden world beneath our feet. And this is a nature-based solution. If we can manage and maintain soil biodiversity, probably we are going to get a healthy soil, healthy food, and so on. But unfortunately, though there is lots of research we have conducted about soil biodiversity, but most of the soil flora and fauna are still unknown. As you can see, that out of bacteria, there are so many millions and millions of those, but we know only 1% of what is present in soil. For fungi, we know only 1 to 2%. For protozoa, only 7.5%. For nematode, 1.5%. And a huge number and amount of all these biodiversity are yet to know. We do not know about them. We really do not know about them. And unfortunately, whatever we know that we are losing them very fast. We are losing them because of land use change, invasive species, unsustainable soil management, pollution, urbanization, climate change, and so on. All of these are losing biodiversity, which is so important for soil. So therefore, what we need to do, what we should be doing. And these are the 2 mottos. 1, keep the soil alive. Keep it with the biodiversity, with all the lives in soil. Soil is not an inert material. Soil is a living system. It is a living body, and we need to protect the biodiversity. We need to conserve it. We need to manage it. We need to restore it, and then only we'll be able to get the whole benefit of whatever we can do. So what the steps? Again, FAO says that there are few. Of course, there could be many others. We need to grow greener cities, raise awareness, reduce, reuse, and recycle, manage soil resources sustainably, and of course, invest in soil biodiversity research, knowledge, and innovation. That investment must come. The awareness must be built on soil biodiversity. So friends, all of us have got our roles. Researchers, policymakers, farmers, consumers, societies, NGOs, all have got our distinct role in managing soil health, in improving soil biodiversity. So therefore, I would simply like to conclude before I pass it on to the other speakers that people are dependent on soil, and soil is dependent on people. If we do not love and respect and care our soil, it is going to be degraded. We must remember that poor soil can only support poor people. A poor soil cannot support rich society, healthy society. And health of soils globally is poor, very, very unfortunate, and therefore it needs attention. Soil biodiversity is very crucial, not only for sustainable development goals, but for the whole well-being of the civilization. But unfortunately, that soil biodiversity is getting lost. There is threats of degradation, Pollution, climate change, and the threats are intensifying, becoming alarming day by day. Therefore, we say that sustainable soil management is really, really crucial. On this particular day, on World Soil Day, we urge all of you to put an integrated effort for healthy management of soil, for healthy crop, healthy food, healthy planet, and healthy society. With this, I conclude my presentation. Once again, I welcome each and every one of our next speakers, Carl, Dr. Upadhyay, Dr. Kulkarni, Dr. Srivastava, and my special thanks to all the organizers, particularly Dr. Kulkarni, for taking this great initiative of observing or getting out one webinar on this very important aspect on soil health awareness. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for arranging so nice webinar on the so important subject. Thank you very much. Shruti, back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pathak. It was really a very informative session that you just, presentation that you just showed right now. And it is actually, you really very well said that the importance of good soil, and, poor soil is equivalent to maybe leading to a poor country as well. So thank you so much on that. Moving ahead, we have with us Mr. Carl Fick. So namaskar once again, founder and chairman of Biotrends. He is joining us all the way from US here. And so it's late evening there, sir. Thank you so much for joining again. And over to you, please, with your presentation ahead. We would like you to guide our viewers today on this special topic.
Can you see my presentation now?
Carl, you have to share your screen probably.
Okay.
And we can hear you. If you can come a little closer, it will be better.
Okay.
Yes, now we can see your screen, but
we can see your screen, but you need to share your presentation.
Yeah, we can see the desktop right now, Mr. Carl, but we need to see.
Yeah. It's there.
Okay.
Full screen. Can you please use full screen, please?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very so much for the invitation. It's actually an honor to be here at this moment with this prestigious group. For me, this is a very relevant topic. This has been my life for more than 25 years of professional work in biodiversity, specifically in biodiversity. And I want to also include in gratitude to all the farmers that are going to see this presentation, this webinar, because if it's not for them and because of them, this is not going to be successful. We as an entrepreneurs, scientists, academics, social workers have a lot of ideas, but if our farmers don't buy into them and participate into this, we are not going to make the change the world is requiring. And I see something very epic of this talk. Actually, I'm calling you and I'm talking to you from the Valley of Mayo and Yaqui. This valley was the cradle of the Green Revolution in the 1940s. Actually, my grandfather was one of the pioneers working with Dr. Norman Borlaug to introduce new genetics, introduce new practices in the soil, to introduce the intensive use of fertilizers and chemicals, to introduce also more irrigation, and to expand the production significantly. Due to the Green Revolution that happened here in the late 1940s, this society was able to flourish and grow because farming was blooming and growing. Later on, India got into trouble. India had the problem of feeding their people. It was not a good production over there in India. So Green Revolution was exported from this area, from Mexico to India. And after that, India was able to blossom and grow so big because their agriculture was growing due to the Green Revolution. But something happened. Something was disconnected because after this Green Revolution, that everything was blossoming during the 1970s, farming started to decline. So we believed that we needed to increase our inputs, to improve our fertilizers, to improve our genetics, to use actually the same recipe that we used in the Green Revolution, to put more water, to put more water systems, better chemicals, more genetics, but for some reason that we now know, things were not going in the right way. Actually, I remember my first presentation. This is my topic 25 years ago. I was presenting a kind of a drastic future to a big group of farmers here in Navojoa in the Valley of Mayo. And I was presenting this to the leaders of the biggest fertilizer company here in this place. And I was telling them, look, there's a storm ahead. There are higher demands of agriculture. The population is growing. There's no more land. We need to use the same land that we have. The water is limited. Water wells are depleting. Water is getting, with salinity. The rain patterns are changing. Climate change is also affecting farmers. We have more extreme weather, warm areas, sometimes frost that is affecting our capacity to produce food, and also is inducing stress in plants that make a big shift in the biodiversity in the soil. And I was telling in those days, 25 years ago, guys, farmers, we are losing our biodiversity. But for some reason, biodiversity in those days was something unknown, something that you cannot see, that you cannot touch. It was like, this is crazy, we cannot see this. Like our doctor in the previous talk was telling, there's a lot of unknowns in the biodiversity. So basically, we neglected the topic. And this is significant because 25 years from that moment, I have been able to travel throughout the world, to be a consultant for the United Nations in Nigeria, to be a consultant for the government in Mexico, for the government in Indonesia, for the government of Colombia. I was able to also introduce a solution for Malaysia oil palm problem with Ganoderma, which is a problem of biodiversity. I have traveled through all the continents, and you know something, soil degradation is the issue. Soil degradation is the key component that is curbing farming today. And it's a connection that we need to take it very seriously, because I have been talking about this 25 years ago, and I know that my partners over here in associates have been also worried about these issues, but we have not done something considerably strong. That's why 25 years later, we're still talking about this topic, and now we are kind of alarmed. Loss of soil biodiversity leads to soil degradation. This is a reality. We can plug the soil, we can put more nutrients in it, we can do many things of that. But if we don't take care of soil biodiversity, the degradation of soil is inevitable. Today, it's impressive to know that the size of China and India together, it's already degraded soil. Now, it's not only me saying, we have United Nations today warning and saying, guys, do something to restore the soil, to get the biodiversity back, because we only have 60 years of farming left. Imagine, if we have 60 years of farming left, we are saying that we only have 60 years of humankind left. That's why I'm very passionate about this issue. If we see it in perspective, all this map is telling us that soil degradation is all over the world, even with the highest dignified countries where they have a lot of capital, a lot of technology, the soil is being degraded. Why is that? Because we have been completely focused on the same techniques, more genetics, which is not bad. They are good. We need to have good genetics, but we are neglecting the soil biodiversity, and even the nutrients that we are adding are not enough. Look this satellite photograph. What is happening when soil biodiversity is being diminished, the capacity of the cation exchange capacity in the soil gets reduced, because the carbonic acid that increases the capacity of soil particles, especially clay, to absorb and retain the nutrients and then be able to deliver it, is being produced in a way by soil microbes together with the root. When we reduce the root capacity and the root activity together with the microbe diversity, we reduce also the carbonic acid content in the soil, and the cation exchange capacity gets reduced. Then we don't have the ability to retain the nutrients that we are applying, or that the nutrients that we have in the soil particle. It was very informative for everybody to see that slide from my previous speaker that was mentioning how the soil is getting all demineralized due to the lack or to the loss of biodiversity. Over here, we're seeing how the nutrients are being leached out in the water. And this is not only the problem. When this happens, also the oceans get affected, because there starts a lot of, with these nutrients in the water, the algae starts to grow, oxygen starts to deplete, and then we create dead zones. So biodiversity, my friends, it's the topic that we need to consider for the existence of humankind, not only in farming, but also in the water. So the next thing that I want to share to you, we are being affected also by a diversity of pathogens and insects. And you know something, biodiversity has an impact in that aspect too. When we simplify biodiversity, it's being observed that the plants tend to grow weaker, they get much affected by insects, and also we can see that increment of the application of insecticides. And it's very dramatic that everything has to do with the soil, and we have neglected this part very significantly. We have a problem, a big problem. Farming is the biggest industry in the world. If we do farming incorrectly, if we do farming wrong, if we affect the soil in the way that we have been affecting the soil because we have neglected the biodiversity, then we are going to have the biggest responsibility in global warming and all the problems that are making our society to suffer. That's why we not need to be the problem, we need to be the solution. If we have a big problem in the world and we are the biggest industry, also we have the capacity to be the biggest solution. If we united are able to change our ways and to take care of the soil and to improve the biodiversity, giving the capacity to our good microbes to grow again, to give them space, to give them the right nutrient, to give them the right biodiversity, to amend with good microbes back, to recover those soils, then we are going to be a solution to. Something that is very important today, And it was studied in a meeting in France where 170 countries joined together, and they say how we are going to solve global warming. All the carbon that was in the soil, either in oil or organic matter that has been depleted, that carbon is now on the air and is creating this problem of global warming. How we can capture the carbon back and put it back into the soil? Well, if we increase biodiversity, we're going to do it in a very natural way. And if the farmers get together into change their practices into improving biodiversity, then we will have the biggest army solving the problem in a very simplistic way. So I want to send a message to you all. Yes, green revolution is very important. Green revolution was the key component at one point in time, but we, for some reason, ignored, forgot, overlooked, neglected to include the protection of biodiversity within the green revolution. That's why I feel kind of responsible, because we sent that message to you from this area of Mexico. We told you about the recipe of green revolution, but we forgot to tell you about biodiversity. That's why it's my life purpose today, and that's why I'm joining forces with my friends in India through Biotrends India, to be able to be that force back and take and include this biodiversity concept in an integrated way in order to make it part of the system that the farmers are using today, and as we said, make green revolution greener. So my friends, thank you very much for your time. You are taking the best and the most important topic that is today. I am sure about that, because I constantly talk with high politicians and high governments, and they are very concerned about the loss of capacity of production of food, the reduction of quality of the food that is being produced, and the shift in the environment. So my friends, keep up the good work. Let's not rest until we solve this critical problem. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bob. It was really nice. And actually, let's not rest till we, address this very important issue at hand. So we have Dr. Ajay Upadhyay with us. Dr. Ajay Upadhyay is Principal Scientist, Soil Science at ICAR, National Research Center for Grapes. He's joining us all the way from Pune. So over to you, Dr. Upadhyay.
Yeah, thank you, Shruti, and good morning to everybody. Well, from global, we'll come down to nearer home now. So what I'll be talking is basically on the calcareous soil, and it will be more focused towards the horticultural crops, and especially, of course, the grape will definitely come into picture. You're all familiar with the calcareous soil. We all know how much its spread is there worldwide. If we come to in India, it is roughly estimated to be spread in an area of 228.86 million hectares, from arid to even humid regions. And especially if we see the nearer areas where we are right now based, the formation is more of pedogenic, though you have some parent material also contributing to that, but it's basically more of pedogenic formations. So, and majority of the area is basically in arid severe areas, which constitutes already 54% of the country, and the soil is mainly calcareous. In black soils, even the sodicity also has become an issue over here. And of course, you can always see that which are the soil or the subborders and all in these areas. What is the issue over here is basically the high calcium carbonate, which tends to increase the pH of the soil. And with this increase in the pH of the soil, definitely the availability of the nutrients is an issue. And as a farmer, when we talk about nutrient management, we definitely need to focus on what soil we have, the type of soil, the issues in the soil. And that's where the soil test comes into picture. And when we really go for these areas in Maharashtra, Karnataka, adjoining when MP, to a certain extent, Andhra Pradesh and all, if you go, definitely calcareous soil becomes very important. If you want to have a profitable crop, then definitely you need to manage the calcium carbonate content in the soil. Even the practices what we follow. So normally what happens is the upper layer could be without any calcium carbonate content present over there. You could have the subsurface area, subsurface layers having more of calcium carbonate. Moment you go for the land preparation, the calcium carbonate layers, what is present, calcium carbonate, what is present in the subsurface will definitely come to the surface. What it's going to happen is if we don't manage it properly, and if the soil depth also becomes an issue, you are likely to see the issues of calcareous, that is the lime-induced iron deficiencies. Essentially, the iron will not be deficient, but it is the calcium carbonate present which affects the availability of the iron. As I said, the presence of calcium carbonate definitely affects the availability of the nutrients like nitrogen, which is always universally deficient, phosphorus due to fixation, magnesium, potassium, because high quantity of calcium is present, which suppresses their availability, manganese, zinc, copper, iron, because the pH is alkaline. So their availability is reduced over here. When you tend to manage the soils, when you think about managing, you have to neutralize the calcium carbonate, but not only that, you need to reduce the soil pH. At the same time, you need to take into account the irrigation water availability, whether they really have the carbonates present in there or not. If so, you need to manage that. Because many of the areas in Maharashtra where bore well water is being used, carbonates, bicarbonates are an issue. So you need to manage that. What we have as a solution, we have the sulfur, elemental sulfur, which is the cheapest of the all amendments present. And of course, that itself will not be sufficient. You need to go in for more of management practices. The question comes, how much quantity of sulfur should be applied? Of course, that depends on the amount of calcium carbonate present in the soil. In general, for the agricultural fields, operations and all, what we say is, if the calcium carbonate exceeds 3%, it is supposed to be high and you need to manage that. Of course, in the crop like grape and all, with rootstocks, an essential part of the cultivation practice, they are able to withstand to a certain extent up to 5% of calcium carbonate present in the soil. However, still, the high pH is there, you still need to take care of that because the availability of nutrients somewhere between the pH range of 6.5 to 7.2. So that is a desirable pH we need to achieve in order to have all the nutrients available. In general, I was just going through some of the literature, and somewhere it was also mentioned over there in one of the, this one, that if 1% calcium carbonate is present in 1 acre food soil, then of course we expect, it's a basically a calculation part, it contributes roughly around 20 tons of calcium carbonate is present in the soil. And if we have 5%, then of course it becomes 100 tons. So if I have to manage a calcium carbonate in the soil, then it becomes really difficult. Because normally if you see, if I say sulfur is an amendment, then you can just look at the relationship. 1 ton of sulfur can neutralize 3 tons of calcium carbonate. That means if 100 tons is there, 33 tons, that's pretty high. And it becomes very difficult to go ahead with that. And of course, to top it all, your water should not also contain any additional carbonates. So under such situations, what should we do? We need to only target the rooting environment so that the plants can grow without any pH-induced chlorosis. So if I talk in terms of grapes, 3-foot strip should be sufficient. So there we need to go for the localized acidification in the wetted area, and by doing so, we will be able to reduce the quantity of sulfur required for the same. But for that, first we need to loosen the soil. We cannot apply directly the sulfur like that, because sulfur, to increase its bioefficacy, that is to convert into sulfuric acid, which actually goes for the neutralization of the calcium carbonate, requires microbially mediated processes. And for that, we need to provide organic manures. Now, as I was telling earlier, that the pH of the soil is pretty high. If you take that into account, in that case, the organic manure, what you need to apply, also should be a bit partially decomposed. Because the moment it decomposes, you could have the acid formation there, and that could also neutralize your calcium carbonate. As such, also reduce the pH. So this is also required. Now, when you come to the fertilizers, it's not only that you apply the sulfur, you reduce the pH, you apply organic manure along with it, that serves the purpose. No. Simultaneously, you need to look into it, the type of fertilizer which you are going to use. If you're talking about nitrogen fertilizers, definitely we need to target the fertilizer which has the highest acidification potential. And here, the most important or the highest one is ammonium sulfate. So we need to use basically the ammonium sulfate over here. We can use the urea, which is cheapest, but then the acidification potential of urea is quite lower. Not only that, it sometimes leads to the formation of more of bicarbonates, which is also sometimes not desirable. But even if we say that the requirement is basically to use more of ammonium sulfate, but then we cannot go in for bulk application of ammonium sulfate. The more the quantity of ammonium sulfate we apply, there could be a formation of ammonium carbonate, an unstable compound which breaks and releases ammonia. But still we require ammonium sulfate. The best thing is go to the fertigation, apply multiple splits, and target the stages where the nitrogen is actually required. In fact, water-soluble fertilizer application and split application are two of the most desirable way of fertilizer application in calcium carbonate-rich soils or calcareous soils. Phosphorus, we all know that calcium is present in the calcareous soils, so bound to fix the phosphorus. No need to discuss more on that. So as I said, okay, going for the water-soluble fertilizers, applying multiple splits. Farmers have a tendency of using a lot of single superphosphate. They tend to use it as a basal application. And calcareous soils, if you go for the basal application of more quantity of single superphosphate, of course, the fixation losses are bound to be pretty high. We can still go ahead with that, provided we use organic manure. What we can do is, outside itself, we can mix organic manure, FYM and all with the single superphosphate, and then apply to the soil and mix in the soil properly. If we do that, definitely the fixation losses will be reduced for the phosphorus, and as and when there is breakdown of organic matter, the P will be released. As I said earlier, high calcium saturation in exchange complexes suppresses the magnesium and potassium uptake. It's basically an antagonistic relationship, and because of which it is very difficult to build potassium and magnesium levels. In fact, if the potassium levels are pretty lower, definitely sugar translocation and susceptibility to disease and pest becomes pretty higher, especially in the grapes. That's what we have seen. And of course, it holds equally true in the case of other crops also. So under such situations, what we are supposed to do is basically going for use of soluble potassium sources, apply to fertigation, multiple splits, as I said earlier also. But if possible, at every crop growth stage, going for a foliar application of potash as well as magnesium. This definitely helps us in temporary buildup of potash and magnesium levels in the vine. And simultaneously, you can have that with the proper soil manual practices, even the roots are also able to take up the required quantity. Normally, this is the one which always everybody looks into, that is a lime-induced iron chlorosis. And many of the cases, what we have seen is, people are more concerned with the use of foliar spray of ferrous sulfate and directly application of chelates. Whether you go for the EDA, iron EDA, or you go for the DTPA, or if you go for the EDTPA, depending on the soil pH. But basic thing, nobody understands that whatever we are going to apply to take care of iron deficiency, we need to also bother about the calcareous soil, the calcium carbonate present in the soil. Unless you manage that calcium carbonate levels in the soil, you will never get a proper reprieve from this lime-induced iron chlorosis. You need to keep on applying iron and all. It will be only a temporary relief. You really need to manage the calcium carbonate levels. So, if the soil acetylation program has to be carried out along with the nutrient management practices, whatever we are actually going ahead with it. When we go for the spray, we need to be also very careful about the pH of the water. For the pH, means the water should be acidic. So whenever we go for the iron spray of the ferrous sulfate and all, we need to check the water. If it's acidic, then only we should mix the ferrous sulfate or ferrous ammonium sulfate and go for the spray. Without reducing the soil, without reducing the pH of this spray water, the spray will not be effective and will lead to more of precipitation. Similarly, we have the issues with the zinc. As I said, the pH is higher. Higher pH leads to the precipitation to zinc hydroxide, zinc carbonate, which are insoluble, unavailable to the plants. We can go in for the spray of the zinc sulfate, foliar spray. Chelated zinc can also be applied to the soil. And definitely we can target at least 2 to 3 sprays in a growing season, depending on the type of the crop. And for the grapes, what holds, I suppose it holds for some of the other horticultural crops also, roughly around 15-20 kg of zinc sulfate on a per acre basis is sufficient. Boron is another issue of the farmers, especially who are growing the commercial crops like grape, citrus and all, they tend to apply more of boron. More of the boron leads to actually toxicity, you know. In a way, if we say that for the farmers, especially in Maharashtra and all, they are a bit fortunate that they have the calcareous soil. In spite of more application of boron fertilizers, they still don't have the problem of toxicity, because high levels of calcium at high pH tends to reduce the uptake of boron. And this is the reason that even though boron levels are toxic, but it doesn't produce the toxicity in the vines or the crops. That's all. Thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity to present on the calcareous soil management issues. Thank you once and all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Upadhyay. It was a very informative session again. So thank you so much. Moving ahead, we have Dr. Harihar with us. Dr. Harihar is Director Research, Maharashtra Council of Agriculture, Education and Research, and again from Pune. So we are moving within the state right now from Pune to Pune here again. So Dr. Harihar, over to you, please. You can please start with your presentation on this important topic.
Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you.
Welcome.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. So you could please start with your presentation.
One minute, please.
Sure. Right, the screen share has started. We can see the screen now. Yeah.
I welcome you all for this virtual seminar on the soil health awareness. This is organized by Soil Health First organization. Shri Prakash Kulkarni sir, in association with KISAN, had given me opportunity to present about the soil biology in the event of this World Soil Day. All respected speakers, I welcome you all again to have this celebration of World Soil Day. We must aware about all the damage regarding this soil. Soil, it is not a simple, it is a complex body. For seeing or for observing or understanding about the soil health, generally soil health is differentiated into three categories, that is physical, chemical, and biological. In case of biological, the most important is the soil biology. When the theme is given to protect the soil biodiversity. Now, we all know the soil health is a capital of agriculture business, and soil organic matter is an integral part of soil health. Soil biology is important for sustaining the soil.
Request you to please keep your mic little nearer so that we can hear you properly, sir. Perfect, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
As we know, the soil health is a capital of agriculture business, and soil organic matter is an integral part of soil health. Soil biology is important for sustaining soil organic matter. So what is organic? And what is special about organic? The organic compounds have the energy. The food chain passes along with photosynthesis and respiration. We know the green plants can directly use the sun and have the photosynthesis. These are the autotrophs. they can synthesize their own food and convert the carbon dioxide into glucose, that is the organic molecule. Now this organic molecule, we know the rest of us are only indirectly solar power. That means through respiration, we use this organic molecule, that is glucose, to energy and again carbon dioxide. And this is the phenomena or cycle of the soil biology. If we consider soil as a living entity, correct, then for the soil, the heart of the soil is soil biology. And we have to see what is this soil biology. The interesting feature of soil that it is living biology. Soil is full of life. Scientists say that most fertile soil contain more living organisms in a handful of soil. There are 7 billion people approximately. This says that majority are very small, as like a handful of soil gives these small organisms. In fact, most are so small you can't see them without pair of the microscope. This is the soil biology derived bacteria, fungus, protozoa, nematodes, mites, and so on, and their population. Mostly, it represents a food chain showing the type of living organisms found in most soils. The base has which tend to be small and support life for organisms to be direct. Upward through each level, fewer organisms remain until you get to the top with a single one. The smallest organisms, which turn out are the most abundant. Mostly the bacteria, earthworms, mites, nematodes, protozoa are the soil microorganisms. Soil is fundamental part of the ecosystem. Mostly the soil is home to more than 1/4 of the Earth's biodiversity. The living systems occurring above and below the ground surface are determined by the properties of the soil. We often ignore the soil because it is hard to observe. Why we are calling soils alkaline? A single spoon of soil has millions of living organisms in it, and due to this, is there in case of soil. Development, improvement, these are the words used for soil. The organism types are bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes, arthropods, earthworms. Their role in the soil is decomposition of organic matter, release of nutrients, create pores, stabilize the soil. This is the more important functions for cultivation of the soil. And these are carried out by the organisms present in the soil. Most people are familiar with the above ground plants are eaten by termites and so on. But most plant matter is not eaten by herbivores. It is decomposed by the underground food web. All plants depend on the soil food web for their nutrition. Whatever we grow, 1/3 should be recycled and decomposed to the soil. And this function is done by the soil microorganisms. All the functions of the soil depends on interaction of all these microorganisms. There are several microorganisms above as well as below the ground. For this conversion of organic matter into nutrients, as well as storehouse of nutrients, as well as release of nutrients, as well as immobilization of extra nutrients, is done by the soil microorganisms. where it is residing. Leader, that is fungi, most important, they are multi-leader. Most are in top several inches, that means A horizon, rhizosphere, and humus. Surfaces of all soil aggregates, that is blocks, crumbs, plates, and there we can observe this soil microorganisms. Now the most important one is a rhizosphere. Their roots and soil meet cells. Proteins, sugars released by the young root tube. We call it as a exudates. And these exudates, these the carbohydrates and proteins, attracts the bacteria, fungi, nematodes, and protozoa. Bacteria and fungi are like little fertilizer bags. Nematodes eat bacteria and fungi and excrete the nutrients. Hence, the nutrient recycling. The food material for the soil matter is organic matter. And this soil organic matter or the organic portion composed of dead and decomposed matter up to 85%, 10% plant roots, and 5% nutrients. From this organic portion, you can have the components like the living organisms to 5%, fresh residue 10%, stabilized matter is up to 50%, that is humus, and decomposing organic matter. That means the organic matter is present in several stages, and that several stages give the dynamics of the nutrients in the soil. This soil microbial biomass, this is the most important. Increasing total biomass is mostly found in upper layer of the soil. When we see in a gram of soil, there are billions of bacteria, millions of fungi, thousands of nematodes and protozoa. And another one thing to know that as many as 10,000 kinds of bacteria, 5,000 kinds of fungi, hundreds of kinds of nematodes and protozoa are present. But for agriculture land, cultivable soil, the proportion is given that bacteria should be present in 1 gram, that is 100 million to 1 billion. Fungus is several yards, protozoa thousands, nematodes 10 to 20, arthropods and earthworms 5 to 30. Then we can say that this soil is ideal one for cultivation, or the soil health is good for the cultivation of the crops. Now, all this depends on the abundance, that means quantity, activity, that means functions, and diversity, means several different types of the microorganisms. These covers the biological properties of the soil, and these decide the soil health. Now, to what extent they are present? So 40% bacteria and actinomycetes should be there, 12% earthworms should be there, 3% mesofauna, 5% other macrofauna should be there, 40% microflora should be there in the soil to have the soil biology properties. When this proportion is there in the soil, then we can say that soil is healthy. For example, we can have the nitrogen fixing bacteria. Now, nodules are formed where rhizodium bacteria infect any pulses or roots, and these reside in the soil. This helps in the fixation of the nitrogen from atmosphere. Second, the actinomycetes, group of bacteria that grows as a and are this made by producing geosmin. We know whenever there are first rains in the monsoon, we smell good sugandha. It is due to the actinomycetes. It can act in high pH and usually break down very compounds, hard to decompose compounds, that is the chitin and selenium. It can produce the antibiotics like streptomycin. Then the algae. These are the filamentous colonial unicellular and photosynthesis. That means atopa. They can synthesize their own food material. Some feed the nitrogen. Then the fungi. process are called as a mycelium. It looks like a root. You can observe in a figure. Then you put in body, different types of the fungus are there. Usually get entangled with the soil particles, roots and the rocks. Mostly these break down the organic matter, especially important where bacteria are less active. That means in low pH, the fungus is most active. The HAPI secretes the acids and enzymes that break the surrounding organic material down into simple molecules they can easily absorb. Most are aerobic heterotrophs, chemosynthetics, which absorb the dissolved nutrients for energy. That's why there is importance of these fungi. Alpha mycelium network increases the active root surface for nutrient acquisition up to 700 times. So the functions mostly functions to restore the soil health, that is the decompose organic carbon compounds, improve organic matter accumulation, retain nutrients in find soil particles, food for the rest of the food web, mycorrhizal fungi, and compete with the plant pathogens. This is also a most important one to have the disease resistance. These mycorrhiza, these are of two types: symbiotic absorbing microorganisms and roots formed by some. This increases the nutrient availability in return for the energy supply. And these look like a root system. Whenever mycorrhiza is used, additional root system is plants. Ectomycorrhiza grow on surface layers of the roots of the tree, and endomycorrhiza grow within the root cells. So for the grasses, crops, and shrubs.
Very sorry to interrupt you. It's just a humble request. If you could please speedier up your presentation, because we have Dr. Srivastav with us next. So
yes, the last earthworms. These are up to 12%. Because these earthworms are the friends of the farmers, because they bury litter. Mostly their cast is also used as a fertilizer material, nutrient source. Due to this borrowing, the air and water in the soil is bad. Several functions are carried out by these earthworms. That's why we call them as a friend of a farmer. These vertical burrows also act for the nutrients. Now, this other macrofauna and mesofauna percentage is given, and it should be there in the soil. So, some are shredders, predators, herbivorous, and fungal feeders. Now, on the basis of feeding habits, some are carnivorous, phytophages, saprophages, and macrophagic feeders. So, these all do this mineralization and immobilization process in soil. So, organisms and excrete inorganic waste, and organisms take up and retain nutrients as they grow. These are the two processes continuously going in the soil, and these should be there for the balance of soil biological properties as well as the microbial population in the soil. So soil is where life begins, soil is where food begins. So keep it safe. Happy World Soil Day, and thank you for this.
thank you so much, sir. It was again a very informative guide presentation. Thank you for that. Moving on to Dr. A.K. Srivastav. Yes, so the spotlight is already on.
Am I audible to you, Suti?
Absolutely. Very much audible. The spotlight is already on you. So,
okay.
Yes, sir. Dr. A.K. Srivastav ji, Principal Scientist of Science, ICAR Central Citrus Research Institute, Nagpur. So we are still in Maharashtra, from Pune to Nagpur. And thank you, sir. Thank you for us today on the World Soil Day. And over to you, sir, with your presentation.
Thank you, Suti. Thank you. Okay, Suti, am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir, you're very much
Okay.
audible and the presentation is also clear. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, friends, very good morning to all of you, and many, many congratulations to all of you, those who are, especially those who are linked to soil science or soil biodiversity or somewhere serving to the ecosystem service related to soil science. My great compliments to all of them. And friends, I will be talking on the soil health in food crops, developments and challenges, and with the emphasis on the soil health. Well, I think this is quite a repeated one, and soil health, which is a nothing but a multiple criteria parameter. You all of you know is the basis of healthy food production. It's the essential item of the food security, host a quarter of our planet diversity, and all those things. All of you are aware, and probably this is where the soil holds the maximum ecosystem service ability. Well, friends, when you talk of the soil health, you know, two things very prominently which strike to my mind, that why in perennial fruit crops, there, as long as the fruit crops are young enough, there's a good productivity with the quality. But the moment the orchard ages, there's a decline in the productivity along with the quality. Now, have you ever thought of that? What could be happening inside the rhizosphere? We know pretty well that there is a negative rhizosphere effect in crops like apple, pear, peach. Have you ever thought of that there could be some negative rhizosphere effect? There could be some reorientation in the microbial communities. Probably one of the hypotheses of the replant disease is the dominance of the sporulating microbes over the non-sporulating microbes over a period of time. Such sort of things, I think we should also look into that. Probably this could be a negative rhizosphere effect also. However, it is yet to be reported in crops like other crops other than the apple, pear, and peach crop. Whenever you talk of the soil health, you know, the multiple nutrient deficiencies is more or less a common feature, whether it is a print media, electronic media, or any other form of media, including the seminar symposium. And this kind of multiple nutrient deficiencies, you know, friends, it has been cutting down not only the soil health, but the carrying capacity of the soil. And soil health is such a parameter that there's hardly any parameter of soil which can be excluded from the ambit of the soil health. So you name any soil property, that will be a part of soil health. So that is the magnanimity of the soil health. Unfortunately, this is the most misunderstood concept of soil health. And another, you know, the negative facet of our commercial agriculture is that you have an improvement in the soil health, but you can never evaluate in terms of the economic return. What is that direct economic impact on the agriculture? The soil health doesn't reveal. Of course, indirectly you keep on measuring the crop response, the improvement in the productivity, quality, and all those parameters, but in a precise terms, it's still very difficult. Well, I'm not touching upon these issues. I will be just going on, and just this is just an example to let you know that whenever there is a multiple nutrient deficiency, you know, over a period of time, there has been a reduction in the nutrient density of the fruit crops. This reduction in the nutrient density of the fruit crop have been somewhere hampering the nutrition quality of the fruit crops. And when they have been hampering the nutrition quality of the soil, the fruit crop soil health is something to be blamed because of the cutting down of the nutrient carrying capacity of the soil over a period of time. Well, friend, food crops, they are no less than a much better ecosystem service provider than many of your evergreen forests. Just imagine a crop like citrus, banana, the apple, the bear, the avlar. I mean, you just name sapota, mango, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, they're surviving. Don't you ever think of, you know, evaluating the ecosystem sustainability in terms of these food crops? I want to grow a fruit crop. Do we have any criteria that, well, this is the population of human population, and if I grow a fruit crop in a hectare of area, this much of oxygen will be released and this much oxygen will be sufficient to sustain this much of population. That sort of exercise is very direly missing whenever we talk of soil health vis-a-vis food crops. And this is a very strong carbon sink. And another facet of this, just imagine a crop like citrus, 50 tons, 60 tons, apple, 70 tons, 80 tons. I mean, this is very common. And just imagine 50 tons, 60 tons of these food crops. When throwing out from a hectare of area, imagine how much carbon they have offloaded from the atmosphere, which we claim there is an increasing concentration of carbon dioxide. I think Dr. Pathak is already there. Himanshu Pathak, I think, is the right person to look into those issues. And when we talk of the soils, that is the reason why we started talking of the soil security. If you look at the latest issues of a journal like Nature and scientific reports, they have been very, conspicuously stressing on the necessity of the soil security, taking into account the various kinds of parameters. One of the folly of our system is that we simply just think of, adding farm manure, the neem cake, the poultry manure, the vermicompost, and all those parameters. But, our own experience in citrus at Nagpur, we conducted this experiment for nearly 10 years, and we wanted to know that what happens to the soil organic carbon over a period of 10 years in response to various kinds of organic manures. To your surprise, that you can see that organic carbon after 10 years or 10 to 11 years, it comes down to almost the same status where we started. Why? It is simply because we have not been able to, divert that organic carbon into the passive mode. We have not been able to stabilize the organic carbon into the passive mode. With the result, what happened that over a period of time, though we noticed an increase in the organic carbon content, but it simply dissociated and lost to the atmosphere. With the result, there's hardly any improvement in the carbon storage capacity of the soil. What are those avenues, to increase the organic carbon and the soil health parameter? I still feel that organic carbon is one of the most pivotal parameters, which has got such a strong cascading effect on almost every soil property. And when you talk those soil properties in a capsule form, we call it soil health. So the mycorrhiza it is coming up. Can you believe it that mycorrhiza is reported to increase the nutrient absorptive capacity of a crop like citrus by 10,000 times. Imagine the magnanimity of the impact of mycorrhiza. And mycorrhiza, is pretty well that glomalin. Why we have been failing it? Because we have not been able to provide the recalcitrant form of the carbon into the soil. So glomalin secreted by the glycoprotein, secreted by the mycorrhiza, is one very prominent recalcitrant form of carbon. Probably it has got the carbon residence time of some 20-25 years in the soil compared to our conventional organic manure that we add, which has got a carbon residence time of hardly 5 years to 6 years in a typical humid or humid tropical conditions. This is again another very nice facet these days is coming up, like IBI initiative, the use of biogas. Although there are still lots of the questions yet to be answered in terms of the high recommendation of biogas, the pyrolysis, the toxicity issues, the environmental issues. The lots of carbon is being again lost when you do it pyrolysis under anaerobic conditions. So there is still a lot of issues are coming up. But only thing that I would just sensitize you that the biochar is one of the very richest carbon source. It has got a very recalcitrant form of carbon source, which has got a residence time of carbon into the soil to the tune of some 100-150 years. Can you believe it? So it is just you add biochar probably in any degraded soil, preferably or low fertility soil, or even alphisols and altisols, which happen to be very poor in productivity. It is just a one-time treatment, and it is enough for 50 years or 100 years to that an extent. And the concept that we have been, very rigorously pursuing with regard to improving soil health, that I've been talking that whenever you go to any paddy and orchard, you will find that some of the trees are excellently growing, others are not growing. Why? It is the same management practices, it is the same climate, it is the same agro-pedological conditions, but still some of the plants are growing excellently, others are not growing excellently. Now, this is simply a function of the microbial corridor. And this microbial corridor, we simply call it along with the water channels. And this microbial corridor or the hot spot of your microbial hot spot of your orchard is to be identified. And from those excellently growing trees, if you take the soil and put it into those lesser growing soils, to your surprise, those plants will start rejuvenating from the next year onward. Now, this gave us a very strong clue that probably we keep talking of the crop habitats, and why not a rhizosphere habitats? And you bring the rhizosphere of two crops together and have a value-added response of combining two rhizosphere compared to the rhizosphere of one crop. Now, this is one very excellent work that I acted as a co-guide of one of the PhD students at the Parbhani University, and Mr. Cheke, I think Dr. Kausadikar must be knowing. And this was a very good work. We tried to, isolated some of the macros from the ficus, 3 species of ficus, and put it into the rhizosphere of sweet orange, and we had a much better response. There was a reversion of the citrus decline. So such is the concept, and we still need this kind of concept to be studied more thoroughly. And this is another very good concept which at our own institute, while working over the last 30 years or so at Nature Research Center for citrus, what we have developed a macrobial consortium. This kind of macrobial consortium we have developed. I don't know whether it is visible. I'm just showing you the pellets of these macros, something like a crocin tablets. Now a time has come that we can have tablets like this. So we have a macrobial consortium which is the storehouse of 5 macros, and these are the 5 macros. I'm not going to read them. Now, the concept is such that just we have been adding just 5 ml of this macrobial consortium to each of these disease-free planting material, and this much has added an additional resilience to the soil health. And once you put these soils into a new soil conditions, you find a much reduced mortality of those food crops. And another advantage is that you can you regulate it to the fertigation. This is another very next generation fertigation something. We've been talking of the fertigation, but these microbes, they are able to sustain against the chemical fertilizers. So this is again a macrobial consortium. Something like these tablets we have been producing, and probably in a year or 2, we'll be in a position to distribute these macrobial tablets, consortium of macrobial tablets, instead of having tons and tons of macrobial cultures that we have been carrying. Who says that there is a continuous use of chemical fertilizer? They have been cutting down the macrobial load of the soil and thereby the soil health. Not at all. If that is the case, the entire the chemical fertilizer industry would have shut down by now. This doesn't happen. So the beauty of these 5 macros which we identified, and they made the macrobial consortium, can you believe it? They were able to sustain against the 800 to 1600 ppm of urea. Just imagine 1600 ppm of urea. Of course, this is a in vitro studies. Where is the macrobes? They are so vulnerable to chemical fertilizers. It means these rhizocompetent macrobes, they have a strong amenity to work as a mutant sink. And this is where such kind of macros, we have to identify those macros which are acting as a very robust nutrient sink. This is where you will be doing a yeoman's job while utilizing the rhizosphere macro and thereby the soil health. This we tested again the various 5 macros together, and we had a much value-added response. And same is the case. Can you believe it? Some 40%. Just imagine, friends, 40%. By adding just 50 ml of this macrobial consortium, the soil health was so beautifully rejuvenated. Not only rejuvenated, but they saved the macrobial consortium addition. It saved 40% of chemical fertilizer. Just imagine if I just compute it on the basis of the citrus industry alone, we'll be saving somewhere 150 to 200 crores annually, simply by avoiding the use of chemical fertilizers. Such is the huge utility of the macrobial consortium with soil health. And then the biochemical preparedness of the rhizosphere. All these, wherever we have added macrobial consortium, there is a much better biochemical properties of the rhizosphere. And just look, Dr. Himanshu Pathak, I think you'll be looking at these slides. Now, this is where macrobial consortium, wherever we have been adding macrobial consortium, it has been able, to reduce the loss of carbon dioxide from the from the rhizosphere compared to those chemical fertilizers. Just see at all these three premier seasons, summer season, rainy season, and winter season, such is again the impact of using those macros, not in a single or dual inoculation, but in a consortium form. Just this other exercise that it was a macrobial biomass load and macrobial biomass nutrients also in terms of macrobial carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus. Wherever we added macrobial consortium, there was a much higher macrobial diversity of the soil diversity. And apart from that, not only it saved some 40% of chemical fertilizer, we were able to, experience some 17% of A grade size food. This is where, your marketability, the economics will be dictated. So such is the huge, the gains that we observed by using this macrobial consortium. Some of the challenges which I have highlighted, this is my last slide. Friends, this is the problem with the current affairs of our perennial food crops. We don't have a real-time nutrient diagnostics. We just want that nutrients have to be diagnosed right into the field, right into the current crops, so that you are able to address your nutrient shortage, any soil health related issue, right into the field, right into the current crop. There's hardly any information that if these food crops are working as a carbon sink, what is the net carbon footprint of our entire food industry, and say that this is where we have a carbon footprint, and go to the international market and say this is the carrying capacity of our food crop industry. Such is the utility of these things. Scheduling various kinds of, once you take these macros as a part of integrated nutrient management, we still do not know what should be the gap of these 3-4 components to be used while making another dimension to the success of integrated nutrient management, biofertigation, advanced citrus production system, and likewise, taking your food crops into your protected system because of the so many known and unknown pests and diseases. The perennial fruit crops have gone protected cultivation with this assured quality and fruit size and all those things. Nutrient density of the food crops. When we say the soil health is deteriorating, when we say the macrobial load of the soil is depleting over a period of time, whether or not they are depleting the nutrient density, and this nutrient density is to be evaluated in terms of temporal, spatial mode, and then this nutrient density is again have to be linked with the human nutrition again, so that it becomes a soil health, plant and human health continuum. Thank you so much, friends. Indeed, a pleasure sharing our work. It was most of our work, nearly 80 to 90% of our own work, which I wanted to share with you. Thanks so much, friends.
Thank you, Dr. Srivastava.
Thank you so much, Dr. Srivastava.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
It was really a pleasure, sir. So because of all of you, all the experts, the presentations that all of you gave, and it was very informative, as I already said. And then more than that, it was for farmers and all the viewers who joined us. So it was we really got a lot of messages in between also that. So Mr. Vijay here mentioned, I'd just like to take a few seconds and would just like to say, Mr. Vijay here mentioned that this is one of the best presentation on the soil health issue that he,
Thank you.
So thank you so much all for that.
Thank you.
So on behalf of Udyanshri Prakash Kulkarni ji and our entire team from Kisan Forum and Kisan Samvad, I take this opportunity to thank all of you and our esteemed panelists and guests for the day. Thank you so much. A special thanks to Mr. Indranil Das and Mr. Carl Fick, the group chairman Biotrends, joining all the way from US, sir. We would thank you so much for spending time so late at the day for us. I would also like to thank all our experts for their informative presentations, starting with Dr. Himanshu Pathak, Dr. Ajay Upadhyay, Dr. Harihar, and Dr. A.K. Srivastava ji. So thank you all of you for all the panelists and the viewers.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.